welcome to the second podcast of Bide. And in this second session, we'll be talking with Ulla Mäkinen, the co-founder and a friend of us. So welcome, Ulla, to this podcast. It's an honor to have you, and we are super happy to talk with you.
Thank you.
So the first question that we want to start with is, because we know each other since a long time ago. If I'm making my time right, it's like 15 years already. So if we can share with the other ones a little bit of your path through your dance career, because you are not just related to dance, also to somatics and a little bit to the music. So if you can make a short resume of from where came your wish and your taste to jump into the dance field.
Okay, thank you. First of all, there is this big question of what makes us dance, or why do we choose dance? And I think it's a beautiful question. I once had a teacher who said that it's not dance you choose, but the dance that chooses us. And I think I started dancing quite late in my teenage. But I think I was so inspired to dance because it was so difficult. I think this was really it. It was so challenging and inspiring, and something different than sitting in the school and studying from books, that I really, really wanted to move. And I think it's this hunger of movement, what comes to many people when they are sitting too much in school. You know, the school is like making them stuck. And then the creativity that you can both physically and mentally enter when you get to the dance studio is something mind-blowing. So I think this challenge made me dance, and I studied dance first in Finland, and I graduated as a dancer in 2004, and then worked as a freelancer, started teaching, and traveled a lot around actually, and danced a lot of contact impro and visited a lot of contact impro festivals also, where we met with Sebas. And then I had the hunger of doing my master's, so I did that in Frankfurt and graduated from the University of Frankfurt as a contemporary dance pedagogy, so from the teacher department in 2009, and then continued to be a freelancer until I came here to Outokumpu in 2012 and started directing the Faculty of Dance here. And then on the side, I have studied a lot of different approaches to movement, like yoga and Pilates and spiral stabilization. A lot of different approaches that has inspired me on the way, and some music and other practices. I kind of believe in some kind of like not being too true to just one approach. That we can have a lot of different practices and they can support each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And somehow I would like if you can go a little deeper about this, because just focusing yourself in learning or making a master. Also, you really deep yourself into the somatics for many years. So from where came this global type of interest? Is more about your curiosity? Is what about what is missing, or because you can stop studying and having more information? For which
I don't know. I think it maybe it's some kind of. I'm sure there's some kind of fear also behind it. The fear of getting too stuck into some practice. I know that, of course, going deep into one practice also, then you also need to shut down some other things, like to have more time and focus in one thing. But somehow, I don't know, somehow I'm thinking of animals right now. And, dogs, like nowadays, dogs have been bred so far that they are very sick, because people want to have this specific looking dogs. But then if you have a dog that's mixed, that has many kind of characters in it, that it's not this kind of how do you say, like the race is not so clean or something. They are far more healthy, and I think this with human beings, like with movement, that it's far more healthy to have many different movement practices that support each other than to listen to your body. Then when do you feel like running is actually better for you than dancing, or sometimes you feel like it's better if you just do some breathing exercises today, or you go to the gym to support the movement, or what kind of movement is supporting you and when, and then through that you can actually notice that there's no need to never stop, or there's no one approach that's perfect also, because all the practices that humans have developed are somehow imperfect, because that's part of being human. So I like to look at movement from different aspects for this reason, and I think it's supporting me as a teacher, because then that makes me understand that other people in different phases of their life need more of something specific, and there's not one key that will fit to everything. Like there's not one answer, one kind of training that will support everybody. But as a teacher, I feel like it's important that I can keep myself open to different approaches to movement.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the ones who don't know Ulla, she have not just a super deep knowledge of movement, she's also super deep into the theoretical part, and I think you have this perfect balance of having a lot of theory in your body and in your brain, and also a lot of movement in your body and your brain, so you can mix both type of side, the intellectual and the motion, part of yourself, and also drives me to the next question that talks about what is Outokumpu, because some people don't know that it's a little town in the countryside of Finland, but in the middle of nowhere. It's a place for dance. So if you can take a little time to explain what is going on there, as an art center,
Of course. So we have a dance department here in the education center called Riveria, and the dance department has been here since 1998, so now since 22 years, and it's quite well known also abroad. There was a long time that we were also able of taking foreign students, and unfortunately right now we're not allowed to teach in English all the time, so we can only take students who manage some Finnish skills, which is kind of limiting the foreign students, although sometimes they actually come and they study language until they make it, which is really impressive. But it's a kind of magic community of people who stay here 3.5 years, to study and dance together. And something, because you gave me all these kind of praising words, I also want to add here that it's much more than just one person. And this is community, so this kind of knowing what you can do is also about not knowing what you don't know, and knowing maybe, or looking or being open and curious to see who might know or who might be able to support. So what I'm doing, I'm not only working in the dance department, but I'm also looking for the teachers who come here to teach. so that to understand that one person cannot give everything, that would be impossible. So it's more like this creating this kind of community and network of knowledge and sharing, and supporting people's way into dance, so that it might not be with me, but I'm trying to give the support I can for young people to practice.
How is the average promedio of ages that the students usually have when they arrive to your program?
They're usually in their early 20s. We have now one student who is 16, which is mind-blowing. It's really sweet to have one teenager in. I think he's not always so happy with being the only teenager, but and then our oldest right now is over 30. We have a few students who are over 30. Yeah.
Okay, and because we talked before we start the podcast, you are there since 8 years ago. So how is it? certain type of evolution with these super young guys who drive themselves to the fantastic world of dance. If you compare the first groups that you managed 8 years ago and now, the questions are the same, or what kind of spirit they arrive to you and to the program, because somehow they are the future. So also we are the future, but they are in a different type of moment in their life, and also it's not the same 8 years ago when the social media and all this kind of super open stuff in the internet happens, comparing to the moment that we are living now. So you felt some difference between the first generation that arrived to you and now?
Generally, I think we are circling and spiraling around same questions, and then also all the groups are different and all the students are always different, so there's always new aspects coming. One thing that I feel is getting stronger and stronger, and I'm not exactly sure why. There's a lot of answers which might be correct, but there's more and more mental health issues. It might be because people are more open about it, or it might be these times that we're living in, or it might be social media, or who knows. But I think creative people are especially open and vulnerable to these kind of issues, and I'm always concerned of like how do we manage those as teachers, and maybe during this time of the pandemic this is even more visible and tangible. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe it's maybe the word is not evolution, but how is the transition? When the time goes through this creative type, and it's a very important formative part of your life when you are super young and you decided to join us, in a way. And this is drive me to the next question, and more focusing in Bide or Bide, because we met 15 years ago, and before you decide to go to Frankfurt, and the question is how do you get to Bide, and how Bide arrives to you?
Well, I think you approached me with that. Inspiration and your ideas. And I think what was strong at that point was this, that when we were traveling and teaching and studying in different festivals at that time, that there was this question of hierarchy and this question of sharing, and what do we actually do, that why are we always meeting on these festivals where somebody's the teacher and somebody's the student. And I think this was really a valid question of labbing and creating a less hierarchical place of meeting and sharing and supporting our work in a more professional setting in this way. And I think actually when I look at it now, I think it's something that has grown quite much from those times in a more general way, that I think a lot of collectives, a lot of people work now in less hierarchical patterns than that time it was happening, which is interesting. But that time, I think that was a big question for us.
Absolutely. And how going to the next question about what memories do you have about Bide is also creating a methodology, and so far your final work at the Frankfurt University for your master have a super strong relationship about the B-labbing that now we are calling like this since many years ago, but we was just talking about how we can improve and try, and of course make mistakes in the way to arrive into something. So just something more clear for the practitioners, So what memories do you have about Bide, and specifically about this methodology that you are a big part of the structure and the founding of the, let's say, what we call in Spanish, los pilares del B-Lab?
Well, a lot of memories. I think the biggest is just getting people together and facilitating a way of people coming together from different places and cultural backgrounds and different practices and sharing those. And this big inspiration. And it's not even like the work, but it's also on the meta level, like around the work and on the breaks and seeing people becoming friends and colleagues and partners even, this kind of energy of facilitating a platform of people meeting. I think this is super powerful. Mm. And then, of course, like always this question of like, what is it really that we're doing and what is really working and what is not working. So also making mistakes and trying things out and questioning, which kind of go hand in hand. So you feel the success or you see the good parts and then see the parts that you want to work in and try to grow from there.
Totally. And how what else has marked you during this 5 or 6 years that you were Bide co-director and co-founder? Because I think we get like 2 years before we launched the first edition, no? If I'm right.
Yes.
2007 or the end of 2007. Yes. Finally, we started in 2009 too.
Yes.
Because also make the transition to make yourself applying for being there where you are right now. So what type of I don't know, highlights that you can remember for being for 5 years driving and co-directing this project?
I mean, it's actually funny now when I think about it. That was the time we were working a lot through Skype and email and distance. That was like normal, to be on the computer and work through the distance. And then came this time that I started here and gave up the Bide because it was too much. And then came this time that I was really present here. And it was so funny when they actually made this very big health check for me when I started working here. Mm-hmm. And they asked me questions of like, are you challenged by the distance that you have to do, like between the studios that you are working in? And I said, well, before I used to take airplanes between the studios that I was working in. And then I had my own office for the first time in my life, and they asked me if the ergonomy was okay there, if the chair and the table were fine. And I was like, well, I didn't own a chair and table before. I was working on the floor with my laptop. So I think it was really on this level of like working with passion. But I think the circumstances were quite hard, like we didn't have an office. We couldn't meet all the time. We had very little money. So the kind of, it was really driven by the ambition and the curiosity and the inspiration of doing it. And this is something I'm holding because I don't see a limit for things happening, or the limit is just like people's energy.
Absolutely.
If you really want to put the energy, I think we really put the energy in this without having much support, and then when you get inspired of something, you will slowly get people to support you, and you will slowly build things that will create what you want to create. So you cannot do it alone, but if you put your energy in, you can create whatever. I mean, but it will take a lot of time and a lot of willpower to do it. But this is something that I'm really holding and have held with me, that this kind of belief and trusting in your own vision that you can create, even though you're working on a laptop on the floor and collecting the money for the next flight on the cheapest airplane you can find.
Absolutely.
To fly to Barcelona, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe the people don't know, but when we start with you and Daniel Berner, we just met. We met like twice a year, So because it's what we can do, and we didn't have any other moment, and especially when you moved to Finland, that you was more far away, because beforehand you was for 4 years in Germany, so in a way it was much more closer,
Yes.
But anyway. If I go to Germany to meet you and meet Daniel, or all the way around to Barcelona, we need to take a plane. And it's funny because nowadays that, the computers and the laptops and the screens are part of our daily life all the time. For us, I think that we start to use Skype just when the Skype launched, because we didn't have WhatsApp or anything. And this happened 12 years ago. No, 30 years ago, you know what I mean? So yeah, and I remember, our came to me our 3 or 4 days of session in Barcelona. They was working like super hard, from 9 in the morning to 8 at night, having meetings with all the partners here in Barcelona, because then you go to, I don't know, to the United States or whatever, and Daniel flies to some Iceland to have a beach always. So yeah, so sometimes the romantic part don't also don't show all the hard work that we did, and we did with passion, and somehow this drives me to the next question, because when we start, we have several discussions about how is actually be lab, Then we go further, and we talk about the 10-year celebration when you came with all your students. It was crazy time, and you can see the evolution, But in a way, the B Lab was a work in progress, and still is a work in progress, no? But how you see now the context of the B Lab within the current creation, and from your taste of what would you like to change or not change about the original idea, and how the B Lab and the labbing kind of evolved during all these years?
Well, of course, I haven't been there so much now because I'm here. But like you mentioned, we came there for this 10-year celebration with one whole class of my students, and that was really fun to join. Yes.
In a good way, I have to say. I remember your, but to interrupt you, but I remember your email. Sebas, I have a crazy idea. We want to go with everybody. So okay. So I love it because when we start Bide, we talk like this also. I have a crazy idea. What if we do a residency in the middle of nowhere with just 3 people? Okay, but we never say from where we can take the money. We first launch the idea and the wish, and then we figure it out all the rest. You know what I mean? So
yes, and we figured out the money. It's
absolutely. This is
it will flow in.
Picking up my memory that I go personal in this memory moment, but we always talk in this way that okay, I have an idea. All the ideas are welcome, and we never say no because we don't have the money. So never was the driving force in Bide. So sorry, go on.
Yes, somehow this, that when I'm thinking of this, like taking the students with me, that has been central for me. That if I have been this privilege to meet amazing teachers and to get to work with amazing people and travel a lot, I wish the same for my students. But if I got it, then I want to kind of take them with me. Like now that I had this long time wish to go to Africa, and then I actually got an invitation, and then I got the grant, and everything was looking perfect to go there to a festival, and share there with the local professional dancers. And then I became pregnant, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be in the end of my pregnancy when I'm going to Africa. I cannot do it. So then I actually sent my students there, and I thought that was even more amazing than going myself. And somehow when I think of this, like this translates for me to the idea of lab, that to understand that doing something myself is not that amazing than doing something together and seeing other people. seeing other people doing it as well, and getting into something and sharing. So actually to give a possibility for somebody else to blossom, to grow and to share is important. And yes, somehow about the labs, it's always like I feel like the time is always so short that there's not really so much time to go into the deep questions around the labbing and around like how could we make it better. And because there's not so much time, we easily lean into the hierarchy that somebody takes charge, which is necessary for things to flow forward. Because when somebody is leading, we are quicker. And this is somehow the paradox with the labs, that then we want to be less hierarchical in the same time, but we cannot take so much time that we would just float in this kind of non-hierarchical space. But somebody needs to lead to go forward. So my question is really coming to this, like what kind of roles do we take and how fluently we can support each other, and so that we could kind of keep some freedom, but in the same time we would keep a clear goal. And this is really a paradox because
absolutely, yeah.
Because when there is one leader can keep a very clear container of what is happening. But then if we want to open things up, it gets messy and it gets confusing and so on. But somehow in this messiness and confusingness, we often meet each other in a more honest place. And then it's a question of like, what do we put first? Do we put first the kind of importance of meeting and sharing, or do we put first a goal that has been maybe the topic of the lab, and to keep into this goal? And so there's a lot of different levels that these labs are working on, and there's so many of them that it can be a very confusing ride. Or then it can be a very clear ride. And this is always like so much up to the people who are there. So that's, I think, the range is so big of like when something is a success and when something is a little bit more messy and confusing. And then on the other hand, it's also a question of those confusing places can be actually the most interesting.
Yeah, and from there drive me to two different questions, because from the time we talk a lot in the past about the timing, because time is super short during the events, and from remember that from there arrived the idea of making the residency programs where the people have more time, yes. And the second thing is about what you said, about meeting totally different people with totally different background, totally different cultural background, not just artistic background, and ages, and in this way there's like the second thought to share with you and look what is in your mind about that is they always say that it's a political type of proposal, the B-Lab itself, and we never talk with each other, say, okay, Ulla, let's make something political. We never was our driving force, you know what I mean? So how resonate your things about the creation of the Bide residency? I think we started in 2010, if I remember right. And the second about this political issue that sometimes emerged when the people gave us feedback after the events.
What to say? I think personal is political. We cannot not be political with the way we live or the way we choose to work. I think this residency is really a key option or key for people to go deeper into the work, and then to have time to kind of choose in a smaller group to choose how they work and so on. So somehow it seems for me like Bide is a big pot with a lot of people to create a really crazy soup. It becomes a kind of mess, but then the clarity comes more in these kind of smaller meetings and smaller moments of less people. Maybe something like this.
Okay. And Moving forward, because also beforehand we talk about the COVID situation that of course is all around. So what is your take about this virtual dance festival that emerged during this crisis, and how your school and also the festival in Finland adapt to this new reality?
Well, we are extremely lucky here in the way that we live in a country with a lot of space and with very little people who anyway are kind of distant from each other, like we keep physical distance. Well, I don't know, but for many reasons, Finland has been coping quite well with this situation. So I'm not the best to answer this question in this way that we are so fortunate. I mean, in the springtime, we needed to close and we were working on Zoom only. And that was a little challenge for everyone. But then this fall, like things are running rather normally here. Like we even went the whole school. I mean, with 40 students, we just went to the theater together, you know. And things are running. What comes? I mean, like I really admire this driving force that people have, that they do something. You know, like if you're not allowed to meet, then you do something virtually. And I think this is important. That you keep your power going, you keep your energy and motivation somehow running. And in the same time, I feel like dance is really there to be touched. You know, like one of the things that I think that is political about dance is really that we're proposing touch. Touch in a way that's not sexual or not only sexual, that's something else on so many levels. That we're meeting and breathing the same air and sweating and sharing movement and sharing the joy. So in this way, I really, really support for looking ways of like somehow keeping the physical dancing. In Finland, I see a lot of artists and also our students. We went to the woods. I think quite normal for this country. You know, we go to the forest to do our stuff. And I see that also because I'm in the art council. I'm in the art council, so I'm reading a lot of applications, and a lot of the artists right now are wanting to work in nature. And I think this becomes even more and more. And this, in a way, is beautiful because we're connecting to nature is always important, not only depending on what time of life we are living in. But somehow this is what I wish we would do even more, just to go outside and be in nature and dance in nature and as much with each other as possible. I didn't really go into any virtual festivals. I have taken some Zoom classes, which has been mind-blowing because, I mean, it's also another chance to connect to people who are far away. It's actually a little miracle that we can do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's also something to remember, that to use its good sides. But then how not to sit the whole day on the computer? This is something that really like, let's go out. Let's go out. That's my wish. Yeah.
For the people who don't know, you know, especially this Outokumpu school is in the middle of a super small little town and have a huge forest around. We did a satellite event in 2012, I think, there, and yes, the space is not an issue there, and also the nature is not an issue. You can go out. Of course, in the winter it's much more challenging, but it's a blessing that you have all the space, you know, to work with, and also to have a relationship with the nature, because sometimes when you are studying or you are making art in a type of city environment, you know, it's not the same at all, you know. So so it's a great challenge for and an opportunity for you guys there. So the next question is much more focused on you know, that is something that also emerged from us when we will start Bide, that maybe we can propose like a transversal theme every 2 years, in order to have a not just a title, but okay, what questions happens, you know, in Ulla's and Sebastian minds when we was thinking about it. And this year we start with performing gender, you know, before we work with Emmy first, with Remix and so on. So I would like, because also you have a lot of relationship with this, you have relations with artists, we are focusing in that. So the question is how is performing gender issues working in contemporary dance and performing arts in Finland, and what type of similarities or difference you can feel between Finland and other countries that maybe you experienced before,
Oof. I mean, big question. I think I cannot answer. I have to say, I don't know enough of what's going on abroad. I know what's going on here, and of course the big issues that are worked on in beautiful ways. I think especially freelance artists are really challenging the norms, and the more old-fashioned theaters have to kneel down in front of the young artists or freelance artists who are questioning old ways of working. But to be honest, I don't really know so much what is happening abroad right now. I have been kind of stuck in.
Mm-hmm. But in Finland, how is your take in performing genders? Because you have also a powerful community who are driving this also out as an artistic statement also, so.
Yes, I would say yes. We have powerful young people who have their opinions and who have their wishes and dreams and utopias about the better world. And I think in all the topics it's kind of important to give space. Give space for the minorities and give space for those who have experience and who have dreams of how we could work better. Yeah.
And how does because one of the main phrases, and still is in our webpage, is coming from you. That the Bide values is all around Ulla there, and it's still there. Your text.
Okay, nice.
And you are. I mean, you are remarking some of these ideas through your practice and through your daily life, and I think it's the best thing. That your dialogue as a teacher, or as a director, or as a choreographer is also have a conversation with yourself, with your regular day Ulla person, let's say, and how in this case, through the performing gender, and also if it's in Finland, it's just related to the LGBT community, is all around. How dance can make a difference, because it's something that you really put as a Bide value, that we can be more stronger if if we engage the not just the similarities, also the difference between us as persons.
Yes, I think as always, it's so easy for the majority to take over whatever the majority is. Its tendency it is to grow and take over. It's kind of a law of nature that we need to be aware of, and I think this comes. This pattern is something that we can look at the structure of a lab, and how do we communicate with each other, and how to give space to those who have less of a voice in a group. And I think this is really about learning patterns of working in a ways that is more opening our senses to listening and to seeing, rather than supporting our own or our wish to hear our own voice of our egos to have more space. So it's kind of a practice of being humble and being curious of other people.
Mm-hmm. And in this way, because we talked also beforehand about some what we call prejudgment in the society, because you became a mom 1 year something ago, and you also have this gender stuff, where okay, if you I think you post some super interesting text in the media and in the social media about this. That and I would like to give you some space to explain why and how you express yourself, that you can be a mom and a choreographer and a director and blah blah blah. So all this gender difference that we are in 2020 and still happening, also in societies in Finland or here in Spain, it's not about just the country, it's more a cultural background. So if you can express a bit about and go further with this.
Thank you. I mean, it's funny because it seems so obvious, and in the same time, it's not yet obvious that you can be a parent and continue working, especially a mother, especially if you're breastfeeding. And there is so many stories and a huge world that opened to me when I became a mom and started to listen to people, and how many young mothers become depressed and how normal that is, and seeing that life force just not being so supported in this world, like that it's quite hidden time of a woman's life when they're out of the work life and having a raising child, and how easy it is to kind of fall into that gap and not get back to the freelance field anymore. For example, I know of personally from people like my old students, like the challenge of getting back into the freelance world after having children. And myself, I'm so lucky, like I have a position and I have childcare, and still it is a challenge, and still it is a challenge to be taken seriously. And yes, I also got questioned that can I work with the baby, and I said yes, I'm coming to keep the workshop with the baby, and that's fine, and this is what's happening. So I'm kind of fighting for that, and I'm kind of inspired of actually sometime in the future to also host space and support space for artists who have children, because I see that kind of juggling that you have to do with your life when you're not in charge only of yourself, but you're also in charge of somebody else's life. So you actually are working also when you're not working. So you're kind of always on call, through day and night. And then artists who can kind of freely float through their artistic inspiration, like you can work when you want kind of situation. It's not like that anymore. And I would really be curious of how we could support that more also in the structures of our societies, but also just as fellow human beings, and the kind of ideas that we might have about parenthood clashing with artistic life, for example.
Yeah, well, I think you make a point, and I totally agree with this point. And at the very end, we go through phases in our life. Can be, making a family with kids, and at the very end, it's just a dialogue between your daily life and your professional life. And we have a word in Spanish called creencias, that beliefs that sometimes are so strong that we need also to fight ourselves through this, because being part of one culture don't means and having another point of view about these beliefs don't means that you don't have these beliefs in yourself. You know what I mean? So so your point is super clear, and I totally agree. Because these mandatory type of statements that comes not from us sometimes really block us. So what is the problem that you go with your baby to a class, or to the office, so no problem at all. So maybe during this all this crisis also, maybe I hope, and I think you also can hope that this type of statement change or move to another place, maybe.
Yes.
So we are ending our conversation. I want to thank you so much, Ulla, for your time, and you are a big part of the Bide core, and you still are, because when you came here 2 years ago with your students, also make a super nice moment of before and after, let's say, and you never disconnect yourself from Bide at all. You always connect, not just because we are friends, also because you are part of this, and you put a super a powerful seed, for many seeds that you already put in other fields, and of course in Outokumpu and in some person's life. So thank you so much for your time. And I want to ask you if you have something else to share with us about this conversation.
No, just thank you. I mean, thank you for asking and inviting and being so supportive. Thank you. I hope this was inspiring for someone. And yes, I hope we can be inspired from something in this life that will move us forward. And yes, let's keep moving forward. Yeah.
Okay. So this was a conversation with Ulla. Paiviko is your family name?
Yes, nowadays, yes.
So with Ulla, the co-founder of Bide, thank you so much for listening. See you in the next one.